The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the Norfolk coastline. The marshland, usually serene and untouched, now felt eerie under the fading light. Peter Pugh, a sprightly 75-year-old with an adventurous spirit, trudged through the tall reeds, his boots sinking into the soft earth. He had wandered further than usual, captivated by the call of distant seabirds and the salty breeze brushing against his weathered face. Peter had always been fond of these walks. Retirement hadn't slowed him down. If anything, it had given him a new lease on life. But today, something felt different. The marshlands seemed denser, the paths less familiar. He remembered telling his friends to go ahead while he stopped to admire a rare marsh orchid blooming near the water's edge. Kneeling down, he traced the delicate petals with his fingers, utterly absorbed by the plant's beauty. By the time he stood up, the laughter and chatter of his friends had faded into the distance. He followed the path he thought they had taken, but the further he walked, the more disoriented he became. The reeds grew taller, blocking his view of the horizon, and the soft gurgling of water beneath his feet warned him of the approaching tide. Peter paused, wiping sweat from his brow. The distant cry of gulls overhead was the only sound breaking the silence. Determined not to panic, he pressed on. The landscape had a way of transforming with the shifting light, and familiar landmarks now seemed foreign. His boots squelched in the thickening mud, and the ground grew softer and more treacherous with each step. After an hour of wandering, Peter found himself at the edge of a shallow pool. He tested the ground ahead with his walking stick, but as he stepped forward, his foot sank deeply into the marsh. Struggling to pull it free, his other foot slipped beneath the surface. A sudden wave of exhaustion washed over him. With great effort, Peter hauled himself onto a patch of firmer ground, panting heavily. The reeds swayed gently around him, rustling in the evening breeze, but otherwise the world felt unnervingly silent. He realized he had strayed much further than intended. Night was drawing in fast, and the air grew colder with each passing minute. Peter sat for a moment, trying to gather his thoughts. He remembered an old lesson his father had taught him about marshlands. If you're stuck, stay put and wait for the tide to drop. That advice seemed practical enough, but as he glanced around, he couldn't help but feel the creeping isolation settling in. The marsh, once a place of tranquility, now felt like a living entity, shifting and breathing around him. Meanwhile, Peter's friends had reached the Brancaster pub, expecting to see him nursing a pint by the fire. The warm hum of conversation filled the room, and the familiar crackle of the fireplace offered comfort against the cool evening air. Alan Wicks scanned the crowded pub, his eyes narrowing as he searched for Peter's familiar tweed cap and walking stick. When he failed to spot his old friend, he assumed Peter had simply taken the long way around. "He's probably admiring the moonlight over the marsh," Alan remarked with a chuckle, easing onto a bar stool. "You know how he gets when he finds something interesting out there." The others nodded in agreement, raising their glasses to Peter's adventurous spirit. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, Alan's humor waned. Peter was never late for their evening drink, and his absence grew more troubling with each passing moment. "It's not like him to be this late," muttered Jane Porar, one of Peter's closest companions. "Maybe he's just lost track of time." Alan frowned, glancing at the clock above the bar. "Even if he did, it's getting dark fast. We should have seen him by now." By 9 p.m., concern had settled heavily over the group. Alan decided to retrace their earlier route, hoping Peter might still be wandering along the path. He and Jane lit their lanterns and walked along the edge of the marsh, calling out Peter's name into the darkness. Their voices echoed through the reeds, but were met only by the soft rustling of the wind. After a fruitless hour of searching, Alan returned to the pub, his face pale. "I'm calling the Coast Guard," he announced, pulling his phone from his coat pocket. The pub quieted as the realization set in. Peter was truly missing. Within the hour, a small search party had assembled. Volunteers armed with flashlights and walking sticks spread out along the marsh paths. A few locals brought their dogs, hoping their keen noses might pick up Peter's scent. The search party was familiar with the area, but navigating the marsh at night was treacherous. "Stay on the paths," Alan reminded everyone as they set out. "The marsh can swallow a man whole if he wanders too far off." The hours crept by, and the search party's optimism began to wane. The marsh seemed endless, an unforgiving maze of reeds and waterlogged ground. By midnight, exhaustion set in. The dogs whined, tugging at their leashes, and the volunteers' flashlights flickered as their batteries dwindled. "We'll start again at dawn," Alan said reluctantly, rubbing his temples. "I don't want anyone else getting hurt out there." As the group dispersed, George Wicks, Alan's teenage grandson, lingered behind. "Granddad, wait," he said, tugging on Alan's sleeve. "What about the drone? Couldn't we use that to cover more ground?" Alan's brow furrowed. "The drone? Yeah. Remember Helen Marsh mentioned the police had one at the station? It has an infrared camera. If Peter's out there, it might pick up his heat signature." Alan's eyes lit up with renewed hope. "You're right. I'll call Helen." 15 minutes later, Helen arrived at the marsh with the police drone. The small crowd gathered around as she set it up, the device humming softly as its rotors spun to life. "Let's hope this works," Helen said, guiding the drone into the air. Its camera streamed live footage onto a monitor, the marsh stretching out below in shades of gray. At first, there was nothing, just endless marshland and shallow pools reflecting the moonlight. The drone glided over paths the search party had already combed, then veered further, drifting toward the deeper sections of the marsh where few dared to tread at night. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared on the screen. Helen froze, zooming in. The outline of a figure became clearer, huddled against the reeds, barely moving. "There!" she exclaimed, pointing at the monitor. "That's him. It has to be." Alan's heart leapt. "We need to get to him now." A group of volunteers, guided by the drone, hurried through the marsh with renewed determination. By the time they reached Peter, dawn was beginning to break, casting soft hues of orange and pink across the landscape. He was cold and weak but alive, slumped against the reeds, his eyes fluttering open as Alan knelt beside him. "Took you long enough," Peter croaked, managing a faint smile. Relief and laughter rippled through the group as they carefully helped him to his feet. But Peter's legs gave out beneath him, and he slumped back down, clearly too weak to walk. "We can't carry him through the marsh like this," Alan said, glancing at the uneven terrain. "He needs medical attention fast." Helen quickly radioed for a rescue helicopter. Within minutes, the low thrum of rotors echoed over the marsh. A bright beam of light sliced through the early morning mist as the helicopter hovered overhead, lowering a harness. Peter winced as the rescue team secured him, but he managed to squeeze Alan's hand. "Thanks for not giving up on me," he whispered. Alan gave a reassuring nod. "We weren't about to let the marsh keep you." The footage captured by the drone quickly went viral after the local news station shared the dramatic rescue. The haunting image of Peter, frail and stranded in the marsh, struck a chord with viewers worldwide. His small, shivering figure against the vast, unforgiving landscape painted a powerful picture, one that resonated deeply with people across social media. The marsh began trending within hours, with thousands praising the quick thinking of Alan, Helen, and George. "This could have ended in tragedy," one commenter wrote, "but thanks to the drone and the people of Brancaster, Peter's story has a happy ending." Local authorities were inundated with questions about the drone, and it became a topic of national conversation. News anchors highlighted the role of police drones in search and rescue missions, sparking a broader discussion about how such technology could be expanded to prevent similar incidents in rural areas. "The technology is there," one official remarked during an interview. "But the challenge is ensuring all rural police departments have access to drones and trained operators." Peter's case shows us just how valuable this resource can be. Inspired by Peter's ordeal, local authorities launched a fundraising campaign to secure more drones for emergency use. Nearby towns followed suit, pooling resources to ensure rescue teams across Norfolk had access to the same life-saving technology. At a community event celebrating Peter's full recovery, Helen addressed the crowd. "This wasn't just about one man's rescue," she said. "It's about making sure that if anyone else gets lost out there, we'll find them faster." Peter's story proves that with the right tools and a little determination, we can make a difference. Peter raised his glass, smiling at the gathered crowd. "To drones, he toasted, "and the people who fly them." As the applause died down, Alan turned to the camera, his expression thoughtful. This technology saved Peter's life, but it also raises questions. Should police drones be listed as an important part of surveillance, or do they invade privacy? What do you think? The crowd fell silent, the weight of the question hanging in the air. Peter, ever the optimist, broke the tension with a grin. "For now, I'm just glad they're on our side." The story of Peter's rescue became a testament to the power of community, technology, and hope. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way forward.